Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a process video for you using the Illustrated Faith Kit for Camp Wonder. I am pulling out these journaling cards that are the devotionals for this month. They're written like postcards, and some of them are in a vertical format and some of them are in horizontal. And so I am going to create some envelopes. If you've seen some other people doing this kind of process, Jill has a template available on the Illustrated Faith Print and Pray shop that you can use to make some envelopes, and she shows how she used those to make an envelope journal. I am using the envelope idea, but I'm going to be binding mine into a book. So I have pulled out some of the ephemera from the kit here because this is going to sort of help determine the choices that I'm going to be making for some of the pattern papers and things. I decided I want to kind of keep the rustic kind of camp feel, and so I'm going to be using this craft cardstock to make my envelopes. I just feel like the ephemera and stuff is really going to pop off of that really well, and I also going to be using some of these just plain papers and some pattern paper to kind of line the inside of my envelopes. They're double-sided. My craft cardstock is actually double-sided, but I don't really want to use the patterns that are on the inside. So first things first, I'm cutting down all of my papers here to 9 3/4. That's just the size of the envelope that I'm going to be making. This is the punch board for the envelopes, and on the left side there it shows you, for the size card that you want, what size you need to cut your paper down to and where you need to start punching at. So here I'm punching, and then there's like a score line, and you just follow that along, and then you rotate it 90 degrees and you line up the previous score line, and then you punch it again, and then you score it again, and you do that all the way around. It was kind of hard to see on this pattern. It was kind of dark, so that score line was kind of hard to see, so it took me a minute to get it lined up. So then you just you punch, and then you score, and then one last time you just go all the way around. And then on the other side of this scoreboard is a corner rounder, so then you just kind of stick it up here and then round all the corners. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that if you don't want to, but it does give for a nice finished look. So I'm just punching all of the corners, and then this is going to make my envelopes. I'm just taking my bone folder here and going over all of those score lines really well. And then this will be how my envelope looks. I'm not sealing it right now because I'm actually going to bind these into a journal. So I have now made all 7 of my envelopes for this month, and I'm going to bind them into one journal. So this is just the back of a pad of paper that had some Canson paper, and it's really kind of a thick chipboard, so I'm going to use it as the covers for my journal. So I'm just measuring out, it's just a little bit bigger than my envelopes, and I'm drawing some lines on there, and then I'm going to take out my self-healing mat here and my X-Acto knife, and I'm using the steel edge of this ruler, and I'm just going to cut out the front and back covers. And now I put my envelopes in here just to kind of see how big I'm going to want my spine, and I settled on, I think it was 1.5 inches. So this piece wasn't wide enough, so I had to get out another piece of chipboard here, and I'm just doing that same thing, just trimming it down so that it will fit for my spine. So I'll have the spine pieces and then the front and the back cover, and I'm just making sure that's the right height. And this is what it will look like once it's all assembled. Those are the envelopes on the inside. So I'm trying to get my envelopes here all even. They're handmade, so they're a little bit imperfect. They're not exactly the same size. So I'm just trying to line them up really, really well on the side that's going to be where they get bound to the spine. And I'm just putting these clips on here to keep them from moving around so that I can mark the lines for the holes that I need to punch. So I'm just making sure everything is really even, and I'm also indicating which is the top and which is the first envelope, because I need to bind them back in the same order. So I'm just taking my ruler here and I am measuring. You can see my envelopes are just a little bit over 7 inches. And so what I'm doing is I am finding roughly the center. It's not exact. And I'm just marking a little line all the way on all of the envelopes. And then coming down an inch from the top, I'm making another line, and then an inch from the bottom. And that's going to give me the places I need to punch my holes. So I'm also doing that for this spine piece so that I can get them in the same area. And sometimes if you are, depending on the spine that you're using, you can just like kind of punch right into it. But because this is chipboard, I'm going to need to make the holes ahead of time on here. So I am just marking out the places, and I'm going to create a grid basically on this back of this spine. And I'm going to make lines for all of the 7 envelopes. So basically I'm making a book with 7 signatures. So if you had multiple signatures, this is the idea of how you would do that. So you can see that grid on that spine piece, and everywhere those lines intersect, I will punch holes. So now I am just going to add some paint. This is actually just some white gesso to these cover pieces. I am leaving this really kind of rustic looking. So I'm just putting a rough coat of gesso, and then I'll come back and do another coat. And I lost some footage. This is 2 coats of gesso later, and then this is how I adhered all of these pieces together. I have this this tape it looks like this, and it's got adhesive on the back, and you get that wet, and it's actually like for packing. It's like a packing tape, but it's that craft color. So that's what I did for both the outside and then the inside. You can see where I have already punched the holes, and then I went in and covered the inside. So now I have to go back through and re-punch these holes so that I can get them for the holes that are on the inside of the spine, just so that I can really see where I'm working. It sounds more complicated than it was. So anyway, I basically got those pieces of that paper wet, and then I had to let that sit and dry. And so I apologize, I lost that clip. But anyway, so you can see I have the holes punched in the spine, and they are going to line up with those marks that I made on the edge of these envelopes. So I decided to just go ahead and go all rainbow for this thing. I thought it would just be fun with the colors that are in there. So I have some different colored jute, so that's what I am going to be binding these books with. And I'm just going to be using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. It's just very simple, but I'm leaving the envelope open, so this looks worse than it actually is. But I'm just punching the 3 holes in this first envelope, and it's going to look kind of fiddly because this envelope is open, but I'll seal it up afterwards. So anyway, typically you need about 2.5 times the length of your signature for the amount of thread that you need, but I'm leaving mine kind of long. And I'm also, ordinarily I start on the inside going out, but this time I'm doing it the opposite way because I want those strings to be on the outside of the journal when I'm finished. And they're going to be nice and long because I cut the strings longer than I really needed. So I'm going in that middle hole from the outside to the inside this time, and then going up to the top hole here, and then I'm going to come back to so this is the outside of the book. I'm going to now go back into the inside at that bottom hole, and then I'm going to go back to the outside through that middle hole. And if you've seen me do this before, you know one of the things I always say is to be really careful here when you're going back to the outside. You don't want to split that thread, so you just kind of be careful when you're going back out there. Now ordinarily this part would be on the inside of the book, but like I said, I wanted the strings to stay and to be there, they're going to be nice and long on the outside. So I'm just pulling that needle through to the outside now, and I'm making sure that each tail is on either side of that long piece, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. And I've done this in several videos, so this isn't really a tutorial for binding this. You can, if you need a closer view of how to do this, it's called a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I'm sure there are better tutorials for how to do that, but anyway, so this is just how this is going to look with those long strings on the outside. You can see there's my envelope. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal the 3 sides of this, or the 2 sides of this envelope, and it's going to close in those strings. So I'm just putting some ATG on both sides of those short pieces, and now I have my little envelope, and I'll work on a closure for that later, but that's how that's going to look. So I'm just going to do all the rest of that off of camera, so you don't have to see me do 7 signatures like that. But this is what it looks like when it's finished with all the little strings. I have some ideas about how to finish those strings, but for now I'm just going to leave them. And this is what the inside of the envelopes look like. And now I'm going to finish the inside cover. You can see I got paint everywhere. So I'm going to get some pattern paper here. This is from a Vicki Boutin paper pad, and I'm going to cover the inside covers. And then I printed the ephemera pieces that you get when you buy the kit. You get the digitals also, so I printed all of that on clear sticker paper, and that's what I'm going to use to decorate the outside of the cover. So here I have some, what would is basically score tape, but it's the scrapbook.com brand, and I'm just going to cover the entire front cover here of this book. And now I'm going to take this pattern paper, and I'm very carefully lining it up where I want it. You can see I left that one piece just kind of folded there and with the backer on it, and so now I'm just kind of pulling it. It's easier to do that way if you accidentally get it stuck down. I just get a better result that way. So anyway, now I'm just burnishing it down, and I'm going to do that to the back cover as well. And now I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and my non-stick, or my self-healing mat here, and I'm just going to trim all the way around the cover to get rid of the excess paper. That way I didn't have to try to measure it. I really wanted the inside of the cover to be covered completely. So I went ahead and added the stickers. I lost some more footage there, but I just added those clear stickers all on the outside of the cover. I just think that's really fun. And then this is what the inside looks like with those pattern papers. And here's one of the little postcard devotionals. It's going to sit in there, and I can add journaling cards and prayers and all kinds of things into this envelope, and I will probably line it with some different paper and cover and decorate the outside of the envelope and everything, but I'll do that in another video maybe. But anyway, this is what it looks like when it's finished. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up, and until next time, bye-bye.